The band is a little weak tonight. Doc, I'm not really sure about that. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. You good? Yeah. Welcome to the Lyric Theater, the original home of the Tupelo Elvis Festival. How many of you came when we were here? It's wonderful to be in the arena. It's great for everyone to be able to get a ticket and come see the show. But the Elvis fans were selling out this room so quickly that the locals, they had to get the tickets 6 months ahead of time. They couldn't decide, hey, let's go see the Elvis Festival tonight. So that's why they had to move there. But it's great to be back here and do some events in this building. And it's great. First of all, before we start, I've got so many things in my pocket. I'm like a magician with doves and everything. Let me get all this stuff out. All right. Got that. I've reached the age now where I have one of these in every pocket. Reading glasses. All right, before we bring out our first guest, just a couple of things I wanted to show you. Some of you know I'm from Tupelo. I recently moved back to Tupelo because the warrants expired. And I'm on the radio now here. I started, my very first job in Tupelo was at the movie theater. And I walked up the stairs of the movie theater one day at noon, and I knocked on the door of the gentleman, and I walked in his office, and it was like freezing cold because he had a huge air conditioner in the window. And I said, "Hi, I'd like to work at the movie theater." I was 14 years old. And he said, "What do you know about movies?" And I said, "I love movies." And my voice changed actually during that interview. And he hired me, and so I got to work at the movie theater, and this is the building, and that's the office right back up there where I got my very first job. 1974, right up there. I was in showbiz. And now he would tell me to sit down and shut up if he was here. Mr. Schrecker, he was my first boss, but I miss him. And growing up in Tupelo, I grew up in East Tupelo, and I went to Longhorn Elementary, where Elvis went, and I went to Milam, where Elvis went. And at the time, back in the day, this is the only crowd I'll tell you my age. I'm 59, about to turn 60. So back in the 60s, thank you very much. That's either that or some 60-year-old just had a heart attack. That was the birthplace when I was a kid. The birthplace was a community center. Elvis did a concert, raised money to build that building, and inside that building were ping pong tables and pool tables and snickerdoodle tables or whatever that kind of bumper pool, whatever that is, and pinball games, and it had like green linoleum floor. I remember that, green linoleum floor blocks. And I'm telling you what I all had in my pocket here. I brought this. Now this building is still there. It's been built onto. That's where the museum and everything is now. Look at that guitar hanging. It was a wooden guitar that hung on the wall as you walked up to those doors are still there, and you walk in there now, there's a ticket office. But this is the big room that had the ping pong tables and everything in it. But the best place was right there. That's where you got ice cream cones. And that window is still there too. But it's all boarded up. But every day I walk to that window when I go to the birthplace, and I remember all the ice cream cones I used to get there. And look at the driveway. You drive up like that and go to the parking lot. And then that was the birthplace there, see? That pretty much hasn't changed. But this building has changed. So I wanted you to see that. And thank you very much. And I won't need the pointer for this one, but this was a project I did about 12 years ago. And these were some great guys. GK, Scotty, and DJ. That's at RCA Studio B in Nashville. I was working at Turner Classic Movies and we wanted to do a big project on Elvis. And I said, oh, I know what we should do, because I was hosting events at Graceland. We should get some of the guys that worked with Elvis, Scotty and DJ, and tell stories about, working with Elvis, and we'll do it at RCA Studio B. And my boss said, okay. He didn't realize I was an Elvis fan who just wanted to hang out with Scotty and DJ at RCA Studio B. And so my boss said, are you going to do the interviews? And I said, oh, no. There's only one person that can do the interviews, George Klein. Because they trusted George Klein. DJ grew to trust me. He grew. It took a while, but he trusted me. And then GK. Scotty was someone that was there, and I met him a few times, didn't get to interview him a lot, but I dedicate this show to those three guys. All right. Now, our first guest on the Today Show, or this afternoon show, Conversations with Me, is a person
about the Elvis Presley. I can tell you, he was quite wonderful. He was.
We'll do it with one mic for a while. Now, Marian, I met you, and it was at an Elvis event, and the reason that I knew that you were a special person, you had been with Elvis for a number of years, and there were so many people asking you to write a book about Elvis, and you had kind of not wanted to do that. But I love this picture of you. Look at this picture of you. This is on the screen behind you. Tell us about your career in nursing. First of all, what made you want to go into nursing?
Well, you know, I wanted to go into nursing since I was 5 years old. I lived at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was born in Fort Benning, Georgia. And my mother had gone over to visit a friend of hers that had had a baby, and I had to sit on a bench outside the maternity ward because no kids were allowed at that time. And that was a few years ago, trust me. And so this nurse came by, and she stopped and spoke to me, and she said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a nurse." And so that was all I really wanted to ever be, was a nurse.
Yeah. And so you go into a career in nursing, you're working in Memphis, and Elvis is, of course, such a part of the fabric of Memphis. I'm sure you heard of him, you heard his music, but when did he come into your life, and how?
Well, actually, I had actually met him. Remember when he broke his little finger and they put him in Baptist Hospital for several days, and he got a bad cold because at that time we used ice caps. Somebody asked me recently what an ice cap was. They didn't know, but they were a lot much younger than me. But anyway, the ice cap worked, and he got a bad cold, so they admitted him, and he was in the hospital about 3 days, and we actually walked down the hall together, chatting as we walked, and I had forgotten about it.
Wow, you forgot about meeting Elvis.
I forgot about meeting Elvis. So then when we became ill in 75, Dr. Nick, I was working at the hospital then, and I was the supervisor of one floor, and Dr. Nick wanted him on my unit. And George Klein asked him, and George told me this, said, "Why do you want Elvis on her unit?" He said, "Because she's tough. she can handle Elvis." So when he told me he wanted me to take care of him, I really didn't want to. I mean, I didn't want him on my floor. I said, "This will be very disrupting." I said, "Dr. Nick, I have 52 patients on this floor, and I see every one of them twice a day. And even though I was over the floor, I still felt that I had to see these patients. Because if a doctor came up and said, 'What kind of night did my patient have?' I wasn't going to say, 'Well, I have no idea.' So I was able to tell him. And so I thought that he would be a disruption to my routine, and I really didn't want him up there. And he said, we're going to put him up here. And he said, I want you to take care of him. And so I said, when's he coming? And he said, tomorrow. And I said, I'm off tomorrow. And somebody else is going to take care of him. And he said, oh, Miss Cocke, please come in and take care of him. He said, I've already told him that you're going to be here. And he said, if you won't do it for Elvis, do it for me. And I said, okay, but I don't get the 2 days off a week. And I'm not coming my second day off. Somebody else will have to take care of him then. So I got there the next morning, he was already there. And when I walked through the doors of Baptist Hospital, about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I don't remember the time. That was a long time ago, and I've aged a little bit since then. I don't remember everything. But I got excited because I knew he was there. The static electricity in that hospital was so strong that I knew Elvis Presley was in the building. And so I got on the elevator, went upstairs, and my night nurse said, Miss Cocke, he's already here. And I said, I know. So I went in my office and took off my coat and put my cap on. And the closer I got down to his room, I was getting a little excited about it. And I had forgotten about having seen him when he was about 21 or 22 years old. I mean, that had totally lost, I'd just forgotten it. So when I walked in the room, he was sitting on the bed. Linda was shaving him. Vernon was there, Joe Esposito was there, and I think maybe Dick was there, I'm not sure, but there was one other man there. And so Dr. Nick introduced me to all of them, and when he got to Elvis, he said, "You know who this is?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I do. I think I know who he is." And so then they all left. But on the way out, Joe said, "We have to talk about private duty nurses for you." And Elvis said, "Well, I'm going to talk to Miss Cocke first. We'll decide." So that afternoon, about 1 o'clock or 1:30, he said, "What do you want me to do about private duty nurses?" And I said, "Honey, that's entirely up to you. What do you want to do about private duty nurses?" And he said, "Well, I'll have them if you want me to, as long as you'll be the one that takes care of me." And I said, "Well, if I'm going to be taking care of you, you don't need private duty nurses. I'll just assign my 3 to 11 charge nurse and my 11 to 7 charge nurse to take care of you on their shifts, and you won't need private duty nurses." And he said, "That's the way I'd rather have it." So that's the way it started, and so I took care of him every day. But I just did get that one day off that week, but I took my 2 days off next week, fella.
Yeah. Hopefully you made up those days. Now you were telling me backstage, we were talking, and you said that so many people around Elvis were takers, and that he would always want to gift you with things, and you would be like, "I don't want that, I don't want that." But there's one special item that he gave you the keys to, that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
That white automobile,
Yeah,
that he showed you.
well, it was sort of funny. This was the second time I nursed him, and I got in his room that night. He had called me from Vegas that day, and he said, I need to come in the hospital. And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I want to be on your floor." And I said, "Well, I've got a patient in there right now. Let me see what I can do. Give me an hour." And so I called Maurice Elliott, and I said, "Elvis is coming back in the hospital tonight, and he wants to come on my floor." By then I had 4 floors instead of 1. And I said, "He wants to come up on this floor. And is it okay if I ask the patient if he would mind if we moved him down to 16? And he said, "Yeah, it's okay." So I went in and talked to the man, and he was very, very nice. And he said, "Sure, we'll be glad to move down there." And his wife said, "We will not." And he said, "Yes, we will." And I said, "We'll get you down there. We'll take care of everything." And I had him out of that room, and that room cleaned within an hour. And Elvis called back, and he said, "Am I going to be able to come to your floor?" And I said, "You are. The room is already ready for you." So they called me that night and wanted me to come on in. So I got back to the hospital about 9 o'clock, stayed with him all night, worked the next day. And then he said, "You got to have a place to sleep up here at night. I want you to be here at night too." And so he was in a suite, and then outside there were rooms on either side of the hall, and one was for his flowers and the other one was for me. So I went home from work every day, cooked dinner for my family, and went back to the hospital, got back about 8 o'clock at night, and sat with him until 10 or 10:30, so I could go to bed because I had to get up early next morning and go to work. And so one morning he came in about 2 o'clock and woke me up, and he said, "Ladies, would you believe it?" He shook me on the shoulder and said, "Miss Cocke, would you get up and come sit with me?" How many of you would have done that? So I said, "Okay, honey." So I got up and put my robe on and went in and sat with him until time for me to take a shower and go to work.
Yeah.
And then when it came time for him to go home, Dr. Nick said, "You're going to have private duty nurses for 2.5 or 3 weeks." And he said, "Would you arrange for that?" And I said, "Sure." And Elvis said, "I'm taking her with me." And I said, "Honey, I can't go home with you. I've got a full-time job here." And he said, "Well, can't you just come for 2.5 weeks? And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I've got a husband and a daughter at home. I've got to, see how they feel about that." Katie had met him. And Katie was really excited. "Oh, Mother, I think that would be great." And Bob said, "How long?" And I said, "Just 2 or 2.5 weeks." And so they said, "Okay, that's all right. If that's all it is." And I said, "That's all it is." So the next morning when I went in, Dr. Nick was in the room with him, and the first thing Elvis said to me was not good morning, not hello, Miss Cocke, but can you come? And I said, yeah, I can come for 2.5 weeks. And he said, okay, bring your Social Security card. And I said, well, why do you need my Social Security card? And he said, so you can be paid. I said, I'm not going to take your money. He said, why the hell won't you take my money? Everybody else will. I said, well, you know, I don't think it would hurt you if you let somebody do something for you once in a while.
Yeah.
So
you could tell who was there for what reason and who had their hand out to shake it and who had their hand out palm up to take it. But what about that right there?
Well, when he told me that he had a car coming for me the next day, I said, well, honey, I don't need a car, I've got one. And he said, well, you got one coming tomorrow. And I said, I can't drive but one car at a time. I had an LTD. And he said, well, if you don't want the damn thing, you don't have to take it, but it's coming tomorrow. So the next day, this was sort of funny, I was in his room making his bed. It was about 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon. And so he called me. He was across in the sitting room, he and Linda, and he was looking out the window. So I went over to him and I said, what is it, honey? What do you want? And he said, he dangled these keys. He said, you see that car down there? And I said, yeah. And he said, sure as I grabbed those keys out of his hand. I got out of that room like a scalded dog. I got the elevator. I went to the nursing office and I got the vice president of nursing and one of the girls in there. And I said, you guys come on over here. I want you to see the car Elvis gave me. But before I had done all that, I even cleared with administration. I called Maurice, the vice president. I said, come up here. I got to talk to you. And I told him about the car. And I said, I told him I didn't need a car. I had one. He said, I think you ought to take it. So anyway, I got them and we went across the street and the man was standing there holding another set of keys for me. And so we got in and Beth Burnell, the vice president of nursing, got in the front seat with me and whoever the other one was, I don't remember. But anyway, she got in the back seat and I started out and I drove up over the curb and I looked up and there's Elvis. Later on, I went home, and when I got home, my husband met me out in the driveway, and he said, Elvis Presley's on the phone, he wants to talk to you. And I said, okay. So before I'd gone home, I'd stopped by the high-rise where my parents lived and told my mother to come downstairs, and I took her a ride around the park. So I went in and I said, what's wrong, honey? And he said, well, nothing's really wrong, but the next time I give you a car, I want to be sure my bed's made. Because we were making his bed. And I said, well, okay. We finished making it for you. And he said, hell, I had to make it myself. And I said, all right, that's good for you, that's fine, I'm proud of you.
He learned that in the Army, so he learned probably how to make a good bed.
He knew how to make a bed. So anyway, that's how I got that.
And you spent a lot of years in that building right there, Baptist Memorial Hospital. How many years were you in that building?
I worked for Baptist Hospital about 35 or 36 years all told. My total nursing career was 60 years. And I was devastated. I wanted to work until I was 80. And guys, I'll be 93 next month. Until I was 80 years old. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And I had had some health issues, heart issues, and I had open heart surgery and things like that, and these little minor details. Yeah. And so I had covered the whole hospital one day. I was at Baptist DeSoto, and I was on the last unit I was going to, and I blacked out. Just went out like a light. Can't snap my fingers anymore since then. But anyway, I had been in the emergency room that morning. That was my first stop, and the doctor said, we're holding 28 patients down here for beds. And I said, well, I've got 3 hearts going out and 3 hearts coming in. And as soon as I get those 3 hearts taken care of, I'll start working on your 28 patients. Well, guess who was the next one that rolled into the emergency room? Me. And he said, "This is not what I meant for you to do." And so they put me in a bed and they checked me out. And he said, "We've got to admit you." And I said, "I want to go to Baptist Memphis. I live in Memphis. My cardiologist is in Memphis. My husband's in Memphis. I want to go to Memphis." He said, "They don't have any beds." So there was a nurse with him, and I said, "Go out and page Beeper 1331 and tell them I need a bed." And she came back in a few minutes, and she said, "They said they'd have a bed for you when you got there." And he said, "How did you do that?" And I said, "It just all depends on who you know." So that was the end of my nursing career, and Dr. Turner was such a chicken that when he was my cardiologist at the time, and so I was in the hospital for a week, and he came in my room one day, and he discharged me, and he said, "Oh, here's something for you." And he hurried out the door, and I read the letter, and it was to Baptist Hospital, and he said that I was totally and permanently disabled. I would not be back to work. So that ended my career.
Yeah. Well, you continue to care for Elvis fans and tell his stories and tell about your experiences with him. And I love when you're around the guys that were with him, they have such respect for you. I see it from Jerry, Dick, and those guys like that. They have such a love for you, and the fans do too. And I hope after this afternoon you're available to talk to some of the fans. I'm so happy that I've been wanting to do this for so long and bring you here to Tupelo and have you to talk to. I'm so honored that you asked me to host your dinner, your memorial dinner at the Peabody.
You guys ought to come. He is a great host. And we have pretty good food, too.
They do have at the Peabody. Get to spend the evening at the Peabody with Marian and hear a lot of stories from people. And it's just such an honor to always be with you. And you told me one time that you've only bestowed nicknames on 3 people. And I made the list.
He makes the list. My first one was Jerry Schilling, and he was my pick of the litter. And then George Klein was my lovable pup. And Tom Brown, in case you know him, is my terrific Tommy Terrier. And Jerry Schilling said, "Well, I'm at least glad you added the terrier because I'm the lovable pup. George is my, he's the pick of the litter. George was my lovable pup, and now you're my terrific Tommy Terrier."
Yes.
Guys, he's my 3T.
Jerry demanded that. It's so great to have you here, and I just want to thank you again for all that you've done for Elvis all those years.
You know what, Tom? It was a great honor. And there was so much to Elvis that so many people don't know. Elvis was a very devout Christian. He was very well versed on the Bible. He could quote General MacArthur's speech on Corregidor without missing a beat. And I can tell you that we laughed together, and we cried together, and we prayed together more than once. And he was one terrific guy. I will always love him.
You said you miss him every day.
I miss him every day. I go through that August the 16th every single day. I miss him like that. I miss my child like that. And there's never a day that goes by that I don't go through all of it every single day.
Well, I hope you feel the love. I
do. And I'm so glad you're here. And it's such a pleasure for me to be here. I can't see who you are, but you waved. I'm waving back. It's really an honor to be here, and I love this guy. You know, he's my terrific Tommy Terrier.
Thank you. Marian Cocke.
Thank you.